So the four dimensions of the college application. This is, again, there's lots of dimensions you can have to a college application. We'll talk to four main ones. You can argue with me. There could be eight. I think there are four, really, where the colleges give a lot of percentages to each of those dimensions. But really look at, besides, of course, this pie chart is also divided into four parts, and that's a different perspective, but academics do count. It's not 25%. It's more like, I think, 50% of what your academics will decide which school you're going to go to. So make sure your academics are really in order. And, junior year is the year they can look at, and doesn't matter how many APs you took. If you'll end up getting B's and C's, so you're going to have a lot of explaining to do. Quality versus quantity is super important thing. But this, I found, is an interesting slide in general where, this is the kind of person I want to become, right? So don't look at this as what colleges want out of you, but literally look at this as, would you want to become this kind of a person down the line and just get more, fall in love with this process, right? It's not about gaming the system, but really saying, what kind of activities do I do? Am I interesting enough for people can I talk? Can I do a debate? Can I do a music? Do I find art interesting? And this is what some of the top schools look for. I grew up in India where none of this, what this was considered all bullshit, honestly. It was okay if you have all this, that's great, but what really mattered was, did you get your 90% marks or not? And that's what decided, which in some ways was very unfortunate, and literally scars you for life. But that's just how we grew up. But community, what work are you doing in the community? And in some ways, all of you in some ways have been linked with science gurus, and science gurus, just watching Jagat, Raji, and Murli and all these team members, how they give to the system. And I saw how much Shreya fell in love with, particularly with Raji and Jagat, how she used to literally adore them and come and tell me about them, about what they did, about Jagat's life, early on, what humble roots he came from. Those things will all inspire you into doing these things yourself. So just see this as a holistic process, and character, self-management. If you're doing money management for yourself, literally look at each of these bullet points as things you could write an essay on about yourself. So when you start doing brainstorming ideas about what you want to talk about, what does art mean to you? I had a friend of mine, her daughter was big into playing the trumpet, and she was so good at it, and she could play it for hours, and there was a whole story behind why she could play it for hours. And I wish she had written about that in her essays, but she did not. So I think there's a lot over here you can pick up from. But the four dimensions, really down to the technicalities of it, is grades and ACT, SAT. That's literally 50%. This is according to that ex-dean of Stanford. That's what it's going to count. And make sure your grades are really in order. We'll talk about the SAT, ACT optional part as well later. But the essays, in the order we've put over here, which is you have the Common App or the Coalition, depending upon the schools you're applying to. Most West Coast schools are Common Apps. Some are Coalition, like Wash U or UWash in Seattle. But your college-specific essay. This is an area I see a lot of kids really messing it up. They spend, like Shreya was talking, 9 iterations of the Common App. And how many iterations do they do to the college-specific essay, which says why Wellesley or why Harvard and stuff? 2 application or 2, they'll just look at the website, pick up some of the basic stuff and just throw it in, and that's it. I don't care how good a Common App essay you're doing, but if your college essay is not good saying why this particular school, academia is a place of massive egos. They want to know why us, why not somebody else. It doesn't honestly matter what you wrote over here. If your short essays and your college essay are not good, this is where they spend time on the short essays, because they get attention. Typically a person's attention span is about 45 seconds, 1 minute, and they make up their mind in that much time. This is where they spend their time. And this is what I was told. And I made sure I really focus a lot over here. We wrote our Common App first, but we spent a lot of time on the college essays, specific essays. Recommendations. Most of us really focus on recommendations from the school teachers. The one we really forget, sometimes we'll write, like Shreya got a great recommendation from Jagat because he was her mentor for internship at Science Gurus. That's awesome. But your school counselor, the person who you work with so often, if you've not done a good job of putting a brag sheet, or if you don't really have a relationship, if they don't even know your name, they just remember you by face and they're putting a basic thing together. And I put this in order of priority. If this school counselor's recommendation letter is just, okay, he was good, he came multiple times, he was a good kid, blah, blah, blah. that's a problem. You're not going to stand out because your school teacher are going to give you a good one, even though it's a blind. By the way, make sure you do a blind application. You still are going to your guy or your gal who you think is going to give you a best one. Your internship mentor will give you a good one because you trust that person. That's why you got him to give it to you, and of course still make it blind. But this part we forget. Many times your counselor changes year over year. So having that relationship is super critical with the professor, super critical.
Can you explain what blind means? Because I don't think everyone knows what that means.
Blind means you don't get to see what they write in the recommendation, so that carries literally 10 times the weight. I don't care what the person says about you, good things or bad things, but if it's not blind, which means if you saw it, what they were writing for you, that you actually posted on their behalf, that you might as well just not even submit something, okay? Because that means you didn't have confidence in that person who was writing it, and they're going to obviously write good things about you if you read it. Blind means you say, I am putting my future in your hands. Okay. Extracurriculars, these better, you better have some competitions that you went into. It doesn't matter which competitions, even if it's a private competition, something you did. If you're going to go for a CS major, you should have something which says some hackathon. Even if the hackathon only had 10 kids who showed up for that hackathon and you came number 3 in that, that's great. But some of these competitions are important. Rank matters. I mean, showing progression over time, that, like Shreya had a great one for NHD, National History Day, where she showed progression year over year, which was a great thing that was there for her. Community work, what kind of community work you did for different places. She worked with several schools for hunger and poverty, hunger, what is that, sleepless, what is the homeless and stuff. She was doing a lot of work there, so make sure you do that.
It was I had a fasting meditation camp where I didn't eat for 3 days, and I was able to relay that to how that reminded me of, like, or that gave me an experience firsthand into like the kind of ache that homeless people go through when they're not able to eat. So
And we were able to connect that, right? We were able to connect that to our application. And it's really important, as she's saying, Shreya saying, connecting all the pieces together. Your essays, your short essays, your resume, your recommendations are all a flow. You literally know what the recommendations are going to say. You literally know everything that's your resume is speaking. You should be able to holistically look at this and not surprise somebody. They need to build a story, a corollary, which kind of builds each essay, each thing they see about you. They go, oh, okay, and they go, oh, okay, oh, one more thing, oh, I can see this connecting. They shouldn't go, where did this suddenly come from? This is not in line with what you did till so much time ago. So make sure there is a flow, and these are things counselors are supposed to be good at. But yeah. Academics, GPA, like I said, standardized testing, be careful, and they mocked us both SAT and ACT, and we saw Shreya hit a plateau at SAT at a certain point, and then we moved over to the ACT. And if we had mocked both of them early on, I think we wouldn't have spent as much time on the SAT. We would have gone to ACT directly. Would you say that's a fair placement statement, Shreya? Or yeah, because we were able to move to ACT very quickly, and then she's
ACT was way better than SAT for me, but it just depends on who you are. So I would recommend checking both out.
yeah. AP is, quality versus quantity. It's very important, particularly if you're going to apply to certain sets of schools, that your APs are in line with what those schools are offering or the major you're thinking about. I'm going to go a little fast because I'm a little behind on time. Third and fourth year of foreign language is super important. This is an area Elizabeth really stressed home for Shreya, and I brought some statistics over here. Many times kids go in saying, yeah, I can do only 3 years of foreign language. We were literally warned against this one. He said, if you're going to go to a top 100 school, you better have 4 years. It looks very good. And if you don't have the fourth year, you better explain very good reasons saying why you did only 3 years, because you had something important to do instead. Okay. So that's an important point to remember as you go through this process.